Hi, everyone, and welcome to Live with Sara and Tasha.
Here I am.
How are
Good. How are you doing?
Great. I realize that my earbuds are not connected properly, so I'm just going to connect.
And we'll be able to hear everybody. I can see now that because Tasha usually does all of these background things, but she was on a very important call up till now. I'm now organizing my screen. So
See,
I now
it's
have
it's
empathy,
harder, it's
Tasha.
harder than you think
Empathy.
to shut down that slide and get everything started. While you get organized, Sarah, I
I
just want
know.
to give a big shout out to Betty. Hi, Betty. I feel like we know each other because we spoke on the phone yesterday. So welcome to Sarah and Tasha
Oh,
Live.
amazing.
A face to the name, right?
Yes, amazing.
So as Sarah,
Okay, well,
we're good?
I am a little bit organized.
Okay, let's
Yes,
roll.
I am organized. Okay. Welcome to Live with Sara and Tasha. I'm Sara Hodson. I'm the founder and CEO at Live Well Exercise Clinic, joined by my very capable screen organizer who does a better job at this than me, Tasha.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see everybody today. I am Tasha McCrae. I'm the VP of Brand and Culture here at Live Well, who you can see here. You're getting a view of my home office today. Couldn't all of my background screens have disappeared off Zoom, so it just didn't have time to organize
Oh
that
no.
prior to have to reload
Oh
all of
no.
those. But I sort of shifted an angle. So
You know,
you
we're
got
just real people doing real Zoom.
real live times kind of stuff. I have a whole new respect for news reporters.
Amazing. Well, we are LiveWell's original clinical exercise physiologists, or what you may call CEPs in the clinic, and health coaches, all the way back dating to 2011. We are at our decade anniversary, but I will share one little secret that Tash and I have worked together for almost 2 decades. I know it's hard to believe based on our youthful appearance that it could have potentially been that long, but it is the truth.
Age is just a number, right, Sarah? We are so
It's
excited to
true.
invite everyone on this call. It's not about age, it's about how you're living your life. So we're so excited that you've decided to join us today. Sarah and I host these calls just to share our passion about the power of exercise and behavior change to help you live your life to the fullest. Because really, that's the purpose of Live Well. It's not to necessarily give you more days, though it might, but it's so that you have more life in those days. So this is an exciting time for us to get to join you each week.
And Tash and I love the opportunity to connect with all of your faces across Canada, where every single Live Well Exercise Clinic member has that opportunity once a week, all at the same time, to come together. So if you can see yourself on camera, that means that we can see you. We love to see your faces, so we welcome you to turn your camera on. But if you feel more comfortable with your camera off, that is okay also.
All right. So if you want to join in the conversation, we welcome that. Everybody is muted just so that we don't, accidentally overhear a conversation you're having with your spouse. But if you want to join the conversation, just join in on that chat function that you see on your screen, and we'll monitor that and we can answer any questions that you have or get you involved in commenting. So let's dive in to our topic today, which is stress resilience. And I think this is a really important topic because we all have stress. And so often when I hear um, either in popular media or I hear people talking about stress management, we hear people talking about ways to eliminate the stress in our lives. And
Mhm.
which is sometimes pretty hard to do, right? Stress is an inevitable part of our everyday living. It's normal. Everyone has it. And so maybe it isn't the stress in and of itself that is actually the problem. So, in fact, if you think about it, stress can also be a positive thing. And we actually call that eustress, EU stress. And things like, let's weddings or the birth of a child or a grandchild, a big game or a presentation, those are all sources of stress, but they're also packaged up with some joy or excitement. And these are the types of stressors where the situations of our stress can actually propel us to greater things. So we rise to that occasion and we find joy in the accomplishment rather than feeling just crushed by the pressure. So it's more like our perception of stress is what ends up causing us the grief. And I think that's just such a fascinating way to look at stress because in a lot of ways the power lies in our hands. So if we perceive we can't cope with the situation that lies before us, then our stress turns into a negative. So that's why what's, somebody else can cope with, somebody else struggles with. And when we feel that kind of negativity around the stress, it doesn't motivate us anymore to rise to the occasion. It instead overwhelms us. And that's when we really start feeling those negative effects of stress. We become paralyzed, we feel anxious and irritable, maybe even angry. And then if that situation is prolonged or becomes chronic over a course of time, we can start to see our mental and our physical health decline as a result of that stress. So, managing our stress levels is really then a balance between changing our environment, so trying to control the amount of stress that we have, and changing our mindset about how we approach the stress that's before us.
And so I think that maybe we can take a kind of a step outside before we kind of come into talking about how do we really plan to manage our stress. Let's maybe talk about the science or the physiology of stress, because it is really important. Like what Tasha was saying, we actually have to have systems in our body that provide stress, or else we would just be kind of constant all the time, and our body wouldn't really know how to react to given situations. And if we were just kind of monotone in our response all the time, we could find ourselves in some fairly dangerous situations given the century and era that we lived in. And so our body actually releases a hormone called cortisol. How many of us have heard of cortisol before? Probably, right? Yeah. Our body releases a hormone called cortisol when we are stressed. And this stress hormone actually prepares our body for something called fight or flight. Again, how many of us have heard of that term before? We need to be able to fight something, or we need to be able to run away from something, right? So again, if we were just monotone in our response, we wouldn't really know, oh my goodness, this is something I have to react to. And so really it's more and save ourselves from an apparent danger. So obviously this was helpful to our ancestors who were fighting off wild animals or simply running for their lives, but probably less useful when we are maybe upset with our children or looking at that pile of work that needs to be completed and handled and has a deadline, right? And so again, taking stress and going, well, where does it belong? And where have we placed stress due to our environment and circumstances? Sorry, that fell out, but you can still hear me okay, Tash?
We can hear you.
Crystal clear? Oh,
Your
good.
hair is all good around it.
Oh, thank you. But unfortunately, our physiology hasn't kind of adapted to determine the difference between, a animal chasing us down to our child stressing us out with their attitude, or I have teenagers right now, so I can relate to that. I should maybe stop using those very personal examples. But all of the things that do stress us out, our body hasn't necessarily determined the difference. And so we often are now living with these chronically high levels of stress, therefore, chronically high levels of cortisol. And, you know, if you think about it, with maybe the analogy of a car, you know, we need to be able to press on the gas. Pressing on the gas is what moves us forward. We need to have stressful moments. We need to be able to do that. But if we always have our foot a little bit on the gas and we always have these chronic levels of cortisol, it can lead to things like weight gain, mental health issues, depression, anxiety, even high blood pressure and heart disease. So when we talk about stress management, it's not just so that we feel better and kind of have a moment where we go, oh, I feel so great because I've really let go of all of my stress. Stress actually can cause health issues from a physiological perspective and cause these detrimental effects on our overall health. And so at Live Well, and for Tash and I as clinical exercise physiologists, we know the benefit that exercise can have on our stress. And so today we want to share with you a plan as to how you can go about managing your stress, because we know how important it is to mitigate that constant high chronic level of cortisol.
Yeah, it's perfect. So let's start digging into sort of maybe 5 tips that would help you create a realistic stress management plan for yourself. And again, it's about not overhauling everything. It's not about quitting your job or telling your kids, sorry, I can never watch the grandchildren anymore, or anything like that. It's just about making small changes in our day-to-day lives and adopting routines that just make us a little bit more stress resilient. So first off, again, this one really tapping into that mindset, which I think is really cool, is set realistic goals for yourself. So,
Hmm.
you know, when you're setting up either something as far as wanting to change your lifestyle or just tackling a project or doing something in your life, it's essential that you sort of set yourself up with a goal and have realistic expectations. How many times have you felt stressed because you tried to accomplish too much in a day, right? So having clear communications with others involved in your plans, checking in with yourself to ensure that you're not putting too much pressure on yourself to do more than maybe what is in fact realistic to get done. Um, and I think this is really important. And, you know, if you don't mind indulging me in a real or allowing me to indulge in a real life example, we were painting a room in our home just this week, you know, doing it after work. And, you know, you finish dinner and you clean up and off we go to the next thing. And I had a really I had put my mind in a good place. All I wanted to do was patch the holes in the wall and get the walls wiped down. And that's all I wanted to accomplish this night. My husband, on the other hand, decided that he was going to start putting in new door frames and this and that and the other thing and run to Home Depot. And next thing you know, by the time he got home, he's in a complete tizzy. He's being quite short with me. He's a lovely man, but you know, I'm just using this example. But he in his head, I had set a realistic goal for myself. Clearly, maybe hadn't done a great job of communicating that to him. And he took on so much. And he was thinking, I'll never get to rest. I'll never, you know, I'll be working on this till 10 o'clock at night and I have to turn around and go to work tomorrow. And oh, I really can't stand this. And the mental chatter starts, right? And so I drew to his attention that he had not set a realistic goal. And once he stopped being annoyed that I had pointed this out, things got much better and he was able to reframe that moment. So really think about, you know, sometimes it really is just a mind shift going, yeah, why did I think I would try to accomplish all that with the hour and a half I have? Or I really do need some downtime. So let's respect that and make this a more realistic project to take on. So I think that's a really important part. The second part of kind of setting realistic goals is focus on things that you can actually control and let go of the things that you just can't. because we can't control everything. And if we focus our efforts or our energy or our thoughts on those things that are completely out of our control, we just work ourselves up. So we can't control other people's responses. We can't control the weather, the traffic, all of those forces outside of ourselves. We have to be able to just let that go. We can only control our response to the situation. And that old, choosing to accept those things which we can't control is just going to save our energy and allow us to focus on the things that we can change and where we can have impact. And a sense of control tends to make us feel less stressed out, right? So we might not like the situation we're in, but rather than sort of accepting what is and then positively moving forward, um, we need to really, we want to feel positive so that we can move forward and feel empowered by the situation rather
Yeah.
than being overwhelmed.
And our next tip is a bit of a challenging one. This is one that I struggle with specifically. I think many of you will relate. We will see. But it is asking for and accepting help. You thought I was going to say money? No. Accepting money. I think many of you will take that birthday gift of money. No. Asking for and accepting help. And many of us really kind of take on the burden of managing everything ourselves. How many of you can relate to just kind of taking everything on and thinking, if I just get it done myself, it's just going to be easier that way, right? We can definitely give ourselves that narrative. And I think some of us even wear it as a badge of honor. I think of nowadays we kind of ask people the question, how are you? And oftentimes the response is, oh, I'm so busy, it's this and that, and I'm everywhere, and and I got this going on and that going on. When really, if we look at, the roots of that question, how are you? It really was translated back to say, how is your heart? And that's where, our answer should be, my heart is good, or my heart is, feeling sad today, but we've turned this question of how are you into I'm busy. And when we say I'm busy, it's like we feel good. It's a badge of honor. But our health doesn't think the same way. Our health doesn't wear it in an honorable way. Um, if we kind of think of, uh, you know, creating this chronic stress by being that go to gal or that go to guy, we really end up having long term health consequences. And I'll even kind of flip this around for us and say, how can we look at the people around us, our family, friends, our community, of people who we recognize are likely in stressful situations, are likely in moments where they probably do need to ask for and accept help. And because we all struggle with this, and it's human nature, so forgive yourself if you struggle with this category. But it's really hard for us. And so when somebody is going through something difficult, I think some of the best advice I got from someone was, we often say to people going through stressful times, let me know what you need and how I can help, which is essentially saying to them, you're never going to ask me anything, so it's okay. I'll probably never do anything, but I feel good that I asked, even if our heart is in the right place. Because when someone is in a stressful moment, it's so hard to ask and accept help. And so if you do have a family, friend, or person in your community who is going through something stressful, sometimes actually having something quite specific that you offer to them. Hey, what I would love to do for you is, come by on the weekend and weed your garden or water your plants or whatever ever it may be. It makes it easier for that person to accept help. And so as we go back and we reflect on ourselves, though, this kind of stress can actually be insidious if we continue to be that person who burdens ourselves with managing everything. And it really comes kind of one small obligation at a time, and it starts to stack up. right? It happens kind of gradually that sometimes we don't even really realize it until we're so kind of stressed out. And so I encourage us to think about, how can we delegate? How can we ask for help? Who are those people that we trust that we can go to? And knowing that it's okay for us to feel better, and it's really good for our health to be able to ask people to support us at a time and say, I need to slow down, I need to be healthier. These people are asking if I need help, or I need to just reach out and simply, and sometimes it means saying no, right? Sometimes it's simply asking for and accepting help means saying no to somebody else.
Yeah,
This is something I am working on, to be honest.
this is so true. Even in the little things, Sarah, like I noticed my family has started, everybody has started pitching in on the big family dinners that we have,
Mm,
whether it be Christmas,
hmm
Thanksgiving, or Easter, where my mother used to do all of it on her
hmm
own. And we've recognized in the end she didn't have a lot of joy in these holidays because she worked like a dog to put them.
hmm
So even in that was a big step for her, even to say, it's too much for me. I'm not enjoying it anymore. And then we had the option to say, I'll take it over, or how can we all work together? And our whole holidays are so much more relaxed because everybody has time to spend together. So yeah, anyway, that
Yeah,
was
that's lovely.
all. Our next tip is get moving. So, Sarah,
What? Seriously?
we're definitely talking about exercise if it's Sarah and I. So,
We
um,
always like to surprise you with exercise.
we've talked about the stress busting benefits of exercise before. You've likely heard about it in clinic, but it bears repeating that no conversation about stress should leave exercise out. So, exercise actually helps lower our cortisol levels and increases our serotonin levels, which is a mood regulating chemical in our brains. And we know that exercise can be an effective way for us to sort of let that fight or flight happen. It's kind of like we fight. We just don't actually fight a tiger. You fight the treadmill or the weight or the whatever, and it gives your body an outlet to be able to let that or burn up kind of those chemicals and allow us to stay healthier and happier. So, how many of you have been exercising long enough now that you've started to sort of notice that it really does affect your mood? Yeah, right. Yeah. And it's actually, and I said have been exercising long enough, but the exercise and mood effects start happening actually quite quickly. And that's one of the things that we hear. I'll never forget a gentleman once saying to me in the clinic, this is my stress management. If I
Mm,
don't do it, I really notice that, almost like a nervous energy that builds up in me. And it's the same thing for, I think I've mentioned on this call before, if I'm having a day where I'm just having a struggle to get on top of things, or I've had an interaction that didn't go as I had hoped, and I'm really feeling the stress mounting, if I can get out and exercise, I feel like a new person. And suddenly you come
hmm
back with fresh eyes, with a clear head, and you're able to tackle that stressful moment in a more positive way. And if that's not stress resilience, I don't know what is, because the situation didn't change.
hmm
The person dealing with the situation changed, and that is the only thing often that we have control over.
And Tasha, I think that, like, I often say, if I don't exercise, it changes who I am, because I kind of become this person who's not me, because I get more stressed. My mood isn't regulated as much. And so me exercising regularly is the person that I really am. And so for people who aren't exercising regularly, I think that the hope is that by getting in those doses of exercise, it actually starts to show you who your true self is, because your exercise helps you to manage your mood so much more, right? And I think back to when we had our babies, Tasha, and those were stressful days of, not sleeping and having little ones and so forth. And even just all of the stresses that came with postpartum, and exercise was just such a strong component for us in those early days. That's now dating back quite some time, but at that time it was just such a good piece for our mental health.
Yeah.
And so our next tip is to get outside. And right away, when I think about this, I think back, oh man, it must have been about a year, almost a year and a half ago now. And Tash and I were, all of the clinics were closed. And I've probably shared this story with you before. All of our clinics were closed because of COVID. And, there were some fairly stressful days in there for us. And Tash and I, we got a blanket and we went to the park and we got in a walk, and then we just put a blanket out on the grass in an open field, and we just laid there, and we got outside and we breathed in the fresh air, and it was amazing. I mean, we may call it forest bathing or whatever it was, but we just knew we needed to be outside and we needed to be refreshed. And so sometimes reconnecting with nature and just getting that fresh air, that sunshine, that ocean breeze, getting that moment to just simply step away and have new scenery, new smells, and just really reset can give you a fresh perspective on the situation that you're in.
Sarah, I just read an article the other day about how nature has this ability to inspire awe. And that,
Mm,
and awe is not often an emotion that we talk about very often, but awe, that moment of feeling either just connected to something bigger, or just have your sort of breath taken away. And I know for me, in nature, whether it's that the sounds of the wind rustling in the trees, or hearing the birds all chirping, or even if it's a kind of a not great day and the sun isn't shining. After all, I live on the wet coast, and you're going out, and I might be walking in the rain, or just to get outside and connect with nature does inspire that awe, and likely that awe that sparks this inner sense of joy and connectedness, gives us some sort of resilience against stress. So there's lots of stuff out there right now about how we have kind of a nature deficit disorder, especially if you live in an urban area, right? Or think about, during COVID, when you were spending so much time inside, and how that, even though, hopefully you had a cupboard full of toilet paper and you had everything you needed to survive, it was still very stressful. And I think part of that was that we weren't getting out and taking in nature and being part of the world. Some of us were getting out and doing that more. And when I talk to
mhm,
those people, I find that they were people who were less affected, if you will,
mhm,
by the pandemic.
mhm. And so, what can you do this week to become more stress resilient? First one, find a quiet place. Uh, Take some stillness, and maybe that's outdoors in a park on a blanket in the field. Tasha, we should redo that. Identify how stress feels in your body so that you can be aware when it is time to implement some bigger stress management plans. The earlier you catch it, obviously, the better. So, finding that quiet place and resetting.
Can I
Also, of course,
interrupt on
yes.
that one, Sarah? I just think that one is so important. Not,
Hmm.
most of us don't notice stress until it is bubbling over. So
Yeah.
that, I think when we can recognize it earlier, it will make such a difference and be able to intervene. So
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
remember my family physician saying, well, did you ever think it's just that you're very busy and maybe under a lot of stress? And I said, that's ridiculous. But when I stepped back and looked at it, maybe there was a nugget of truth in what he was saying, but I couldn't see it for myself because we tend to be very sort of closed off, charge ahead. So pay attention to that.
Mhm. I once got the analogy of stress builds up for us like filling a bathtub drip by drip by drip, but eventually that bathtub overflows. And when it does, it doesn't just have a little tiny trickle that just comes over the edge of the bathtub. It's a waterfall, right? It takes one drop to create that last little bing and and you have a big mess on your hands. So identifying when that tap is dripping. Make a date with exercise, please. Make sure that you get into the clinic. Make sure that you get outside and get in some walks, and burn off that unneeded cortisol, to help you to manage your stress and to feel better. And be a nutrition scout. The way that we eat food and the foods that we choose are so important. So feeding your body whole, unprocessed foods are so important. And seize the night. Make sure that you get good sleep. It will make you more stress resilient. And we have so much information for you on seizing the night and sleep practices and tips on getting better sleep, in the lessons in your member portal.
All right. Well, that is all that we have for today. So thank you so much for joining us. It's always our pleasure. Probably the most fun hour that Sara and I spend all week. If you're watching this on a replay and you're not a member at LiveWell, we'd love to invite you to be our guest at one of our locations. You can visit us at www.livewellclinic.ca to learn more about how we can host you as a guest with your very own customized exercise program. If you don't subscribe to our YouTube channel, please consider doing that. That way you can catch all of the live episodes. And Sara and I are always trying to concoct up some new things to put on the channel for you. And we will be back next Thursday, where we're going to be talking about eating to feel satisfied. Not full, not hungry, not sad, not happy, but satisfied, where we should be. Have a wonderful week, everyone. Enjoy your long weekend. And I hope for those of you here in our neck of the woods that you are able to stay cool, though I'm sure it's warm right across the country. Take care,
See you
everyone.
all next week, same time, same place. Until then, have a stress-free week.